feels like a little bit like a class. Thank you for that introduction. I think, as with the case with many of us, when you hear such an introduction, you wonder who's that guy they're talking about. And then a short dude shows up at the front of the stage and I'm like, who Jamal Lakini? Welcome to those who haven't been to Nairobi before. It is the heart of the world and civilization. And it's a great pleasure to have you with us. Welcome to those who are in Kenya, which I think it's Richard who talked about the buildings that he has seen coming up in Nairobi. And I always think of those are just external edifices of the reality of the people who are Kenyans. This is the land not just of humanity, it is also the land of the side hustle. So every single person here, whether they have a corporate role or not, has at the very least 3 or 4 side hustles, which is the heart of entrepreneurship and the heart of building our lives, our worlds, our wealth, and a better continent. I was actually asked to speak about a major opportunity that I think everybody on the continent should be thinking about seriously. And so yes, it has implications on finance and wealth and well-being and livelihoods, but more importantly, it is being part of the solution to a critical problem in the world. And before I get to that, it is important for people to have context. So as mentioned, Edwin Macharia has spent the last 20 years as a strategic advisor in the world. Most previously was running the world's largest impact-focused advisory firm with about 35 offices across the world. I was the global CEO. And as part of that was a multi-$100 million business. And in that work, it meant that I was engaging really actively with different types of people that you all think about and care about. One, of course, is our leaders and our politicians. What are our governments doing? What are the policies they're putting in place? What are the places they're making investments, and what are the places they're not making investments, and they need to change. Our corporate leaders, there's no single CEO of substance on the continent that is not within 1 or 2 phone calls away. The ability to change and influence industry is there and is all in our hands. And the same thing with those who anchor what is generally called the civil society. Those who think about what is the impact of the policies that are made, what does this mean from a human rights perspective, what does this mean from a gender inclusion perspective, what does this mean from an inclusivity perspective. All those are people who I engage with and I work with on a daily basis as clients of mine. But last year something significant happened, where in the firm that we had built, we recognized that there's a really unique opportunity that Africa has today. I think many of us are deeply frustrated when everybody talks about Africa's potential. Right? Potential is a thing that you haven't quite achieved yet. It is a thing that you might be able to do, but something is missing. It's not been actualized in real life. And that needed to change. And that needed to change from our perspective on one critical dimension, that the era of the foreign advisor should be over. I'll repeat that again. The era of the foreign advisor, somebody who has to get on a plane to come and tell you how to run your country, how to run your affairs, should be increasingly over. And why is that? Because we all went to the same schools. And in fact, when we went to the same schools as they did, the people who have been labeled as advisors, who come to our markets and tell us what we think they should do, we actually did better than them in school. So on what basis do they have to come and tell us this is the right way to do things? Now, of course, with the democratization of knowledge and information, we all watch the same TED Talks. We all read the same Economist articles and magazines. There is fundamentally no difference from a technical knowledge understanding, leave alone from an intellectual knowledge and ability that we Africans have to the rest of the world. Absolutely zero. I'll repeat again, absolutely zero. The 2 things that will make a dramatic difference in whether you're successful or not is, yes, you need to have a technical knowledge understanding of the space you operate in. Whether it's finance, whether it's insurance, whether it's marketing, you need to understand your craft. And that's a technical understanding. And there's no piece of knowledge or information that exists in the world that you do not have access to right now, on your phone and any of the other platforms. So it's no longer a technical knowledge understanding gap. The 2 critical things that matter is one, do you deeply, and I'll repeat, deeply understand the context in which you'll be operating? Do you understand the fundamental difference of doing business between Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda and Cote d'Ivoire and Nigeria and Algeria and South Africa? Do you deeply understand that context? Because all of these things live in an ecosystem. And an ecosystem, things come into balance and into stasis when the positive forces and the negative forces are equal to each other. If you're going to change your ecosystem, you must understand what those positive and negative forces are, whatever they are. It could be politics, it could be government policy, it could be that your president does not like the Minister of Health. Sometimes it can feel petty and personal, but it is the context you live in. And so if you're trying to advocate for nutrition and nutritional improvements in your country, and you know that the president and the Minister of Health do not get along, what are the chances that the Minister of Health, being the advocate for nutrition, is going to succeed? Very low, or lower than should be. And so then you approach that from the agriculture perspective, because it so happens those two get along. Do you understand what I mean by context? That context is not gotten by flying in, flying out. It is not gotten by reading the most recent World Bank report. It is not gotten by reading the Daily Nation or the Star or whatever is the paper that was published on the day you arrived in the country. It is gotten by actually living and being in the community and in the society. And there's nobody who has that context more than you in all your markets, in every single market. Whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in health, in hospitality, in fintech, nobody has that context more than you. The second big thing that will make a difference on whether you're successful or not is, do you actually have networks and relationships you can tap into? Do you know, not just the head of state? People keep asking this question, can you call the president of X or the president of Y, and can we have this conversation? And we can, because we have those people in our phones and in our numbers. We can call them. But sometimes it's not the president who actually gets things done. It is the director of that obscure little part of a ministry who actually decides and is the one who will be a champion or not a champion for the thing you're trying to make happen. And so you have people flying in and flying out of our countries and our continent, and all they see is, I need a meeting with the president, I need a meeting with the minister, and all they end up having is an interesting conversation. If they do not know it's the director who's actually going to make a difference, guess what? Nothing moves. The same thing. I happened to see to an incredible lady, Pauline, if you can put your hand up, whose business is being an incredible connector. On a day-to-day basis, she's in the insurance space. But if I need anything cleared in the Port Authority of of Mombasa, now I know who I'll call. Knowing Pauline is the thing that will make a difference if I'm building a business in Kenya or not. If I have to clear goods, Pauline is my go-to person. If I need to do anything in the technology space, I know Chris, and in fact, the reason I'm in the room is because Chris called me and said, hey boss, kuna kitu, can you please come and have a conversation with these young people? Not that I'm that old, but you know what I mean. And so if you do not have those networks and relationships, it will always be harder and it will always be slower for you to succeed in the things you need to get done. And so take full advantage of the people who are in the room. The people who saw it fit to wake up at 7, 8 in the morning, brave the random weather that we had today, get here and are in the room, and they're asking, what can we do together? And you have to build that. Networks don't come easy. You have to put in the time and effort to build those networks. And that's exactly what the Top 40 Under 40 Africa offers all of you. And you're in the room, you should say, who are the 10 people I need to connect with? Not just think it's Chris you need to meet. It's the person you're sitting next to. It's the person sitting behind you. It's the guy who gave you the flag that you waved and you're like, why is this guy giving me a flag? Okay? So think about your networks and your networks deliberately and build them. So let me talk about what I think is going to be the most important, and I do not use those words lightly, the most important opportunity for Africa in the next 20 years. In my advisory work, which I've spent 20 years in, I it is critical for me to understand what are the trends that are happening and what are the real dramatic opportunities that will exist in the future that enables our clients, be they financial institutions, be they insurance companies, be they healthcare providers, be they education and edutech players, whoever they are, hospitality, manufacturing, all of those are industries we serve actively today. It is my job to look forward and say, what are the things that are beginning now that in 20 years, the people who will have captured those opportunities will be the people who will be saying, we are the billionaires of Africa. And not shilling billionaires, not CD billionaires, not rand billionaires, dollar billionaires. People who succeed above and beyond. And that opportunity is very simply the climate change space. Now I see some of you will glaze and say, climate change, okay, it rains, it doesn't rain, we have floods. What does that have to do with being an opportunity? Majority of the conversation about Africa and climate change is centered on this very basic dynamic and this very basic statistic. Africa emits about 5% of all global emissions today. 5%. We're nothing. Because our industries are small, our energy is small. We're tiny. Yet we will reap between 25 and 35% of all the impact of climate change. Do you see the imbalance there? We did cause it, we're the ones who are going to suffer the most from it. So from a moral high ground perspective, we hold that for the rest of the world and say this thing that's happening, that's causing these floods that are killing people, that's causing these droughts. Kenya is just coming out of a 5-year drought, the longest in my lifetime. We did cause them, but we are reaping the winds of something other people have sown. And that is majority of the conversation about climate change in Africa. And that is an important and valuable, and we should continue to hold that position, because that keeps saying the world has been unfair, and the world needs to do something about it. Anybody who follows the climate change debate knows that the year before in Sharm el-Sheikh, there was this big commitment made by the world that there would be a fund called the Loss and Damage Fund. And this was a fund to help countries mitigate against the impact of climate change. Finally, at COP28 in Dubai, looks like that's going to be operationalized. Guess how big that fund is? How much money is in that fund? Who knows? Who can guess? This is the part that's called audience participation. It's important to know if you guys are awake, if that coffee is working. Who can guess how big that fund is? Climate change, 1 billion people in Africa, 1.3 billion people in Africa. The world has come together and said, here is a fund to sort out all the problems that have been caused by climate change. How big is that fund? I have no problem holding uncomfortable silences. Yes, sir. You have to yell, I can't hear you. Could somebody just pass on the word? What did you say? 100 million. 100 billion. Good estimate? Zero. How much is funded? Currently zero. Guys, this information is on your phone. I've seen some people Google. Yes, sir. Sorry?
700 million.
700 million? Yes, ma'am. 90 billion. Okay? The actual number that was committed is $100 million for 1.3 billion people. And it's not just Africa only, it's every part of the world, including Latin America. Does that sound fair? Does that sound like a number that will make a difference?
No.
Unless I gave Chris 100 million. Is it going to make a difference in the world? Probably not. And so it is important for us to advocate for that number to show up. But actually, I'm trying to put to you that the opportunity actually lies in us being the solution for Africa's challenges, for the climate change challenge. And let me articulate for you why. One is, if, and I'll repeat this, if the world is serious about climate change, there's something that will be called a carbon budget. That every single product produced and consumed in the world will be measured, and we could say how much carbon was released in the production of this product. Whether it's your glasses, your shoes, the food we drink, we eat, the juice we had outside, the coffee, every single thing will have a carbon ledger. And that will have a financial implication. It will matter if I buy jeans that have been manufactured in China versus Kenya. It will matter whether my car was manufactured in South Africa or manufactured in Tanzania. It will matter in the next 20 years. And what does that mean? It means the ability to have green manufacturing, green production is going to be the single most important advantage Africa has in the future. And do you know why? Most of our energy grids today, not in the future, today, are between 80 and 95% renewable. 80 and 95% renewable. All of Africa, if you move South Africa, Nigeria, and Egypt, averages 92% renewable energy. So anything that is being produced on the continent today, that's the number. It's going to take trillions. I think that our last estimate was something like $40 trillion, and at least 15 to 20 years before China, India, Europe, and the US and Canada and some of those other countries, which are right now driving a lot of our manufacturing capability in the world, green their energy before they get to anywhere close to where we are. And so anybody who's building a plant today needs to bring it to the continent because it is going to matter. Are we together? Our headroom for energy, for renewable energy, is incredible. 40% of the sun's energy, 40% of the sun's energy lands on the African continent today. So if anybody's thinking about solar power generation, there's only one place you should do that. It's not in the global north where they have winters and all kinds of random weather events that we do not suffer from. Even now when it's this cloudy, the amount of energy being received in Kenya today from the sun is magnitudes of orders higher than what is being received in the global north, even right now when it's cloudy. Our headroom for geothermal power is similarly at least 1,000x-fold of what we produce today. Leave alone, we have some of the best wind in the world, leave alone our hydrogen capabilities. So the productive use of energy, there is no other place that has the potential that Africa has today to produce green energy and use that for manufacturing. That's number one. Number two is, because of the diversity and space of our continent, we have the highest amount of arable land. We have the greatest diversity of agroecological conditions. So you can grow anything. And we have the ability to actually grow anything. So if you think about your raw materials that go into your agriculture value chains, there is no other place to produce them other than here. When you think about your rare earth minerals, where are we still exporting soil instead of exporting processed products? Why is that? And the third big opportunity, or the third big reason, is all of you, young people with energy, with ideas, with the technical knowledge, with a deep understanding of their local context, and with the networks to be able to get there. This is the last frontier of manufacturing in the world. Africa is. And not just now, will always be for the foreseeable future. Not only are we the youngest continent, we will continue to be the youngest continent for the rest of the world into the foreseeable future, until any of the other countries reverse their dynamics around births and deaths. So this is the place, here, where we are. And I hope in 20 years when we come back together in a room like this, it's going to be 15, 20 of you who are saying, we heard about this opportunity that would show up in 20 years. We started doing something now to touch it. And oh, you know why we can't land in JK anymore? There's so many private jets that have been parked there, there's no space. Is that a good dream? Is that a good place to be? Well, the opportunity for you is ask yourself, whatever business you're building today, how does it respond to the climate change opportunity? Whether you're in manufacturing, how do you green your capabilities? How do you make sure the product that you're putting out to market you're very distinctively selling it to the rest of the world and saying, this is the greenest product ever in the world, because look, my energy is green, look, my sources of products are untainted, and this is no longer competitive with any product that's made anywhere. Even in the technology space, where do your servers sit, right? What energy do you consume on your laptop as you're coding? How do you scale? All of those things will matter. And so the faster you start thinking about that opportunity and start taking advantage of it and start positioning yourself as the person who is the solution to that, the faster we'll get a couple more private jets on the continent, owned by people who are in this room. So good luck with everything. Enjoy these conversations. Deeply spend your time networking and meeting each other. Do not assume the person sitting next to you who is not the most, they might end up being the most important person you meet for the rest of your life. So take full advantage of that. Asante sana.